So with that, let's start off with Aaron. Welcome, Aaron. Come on up. There's a microphone here. How about it? It's all.
Hello. I'm just here to hear these people speak, but you have to listen to me first, I guess. I came to NNU in 2008, and I didn't apply to any other schools. This was the only school that I applied to. I knew I wanted to come here. I remember lots of Thanksgivings coming here, spending time with our family. It's colder then, but and Mom had such a rich history here, and it was the only choice. And then they let me play basketball too, so yeah, that was another reason. So after that, I have to look and see what I was going to talk about. So a little bit about what I do. If you are like most of the world and most of the medical community, even the doctors that I work with, you may not know what a peds rehab doc does. And so I did 4 years of medical school in San Diego, and the closest U.S. med school to the beach, which is why I went there. And then I spent my intern year, my residency, and then fellowship at Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, which is a little colder than San Diego. And I was trained there in learning about our brain, our nerves, and treating things like traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury, and then also in muscles and joints, so everything from sports medicine to amputee care. And then my fellowship in pediatrics focused on kids, so I get to work with kids with cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, spina bifida, and a host of other physical conditions that cause change in their lives, and whether that's an illness or cancer. And I think it's the best job in the world. Sorry for you guys that are stuck in everything else, but I get to come across kids every day and families every day, and these are like change the world kind of parents and what they're doing for their kids every day and the lives that they live. And I think it's a little bit ironic when I think back to kind of my view as a young person and my idea of what physical disability meant and what that whole avenue looked like. And so I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's a little embarrassing, so especially given Patrick and Justin's story that we've heard, and so it's a little ashamed of my attitude towards it. And then when I came to NNU in 2008, I thought it was pretty hot stuff. I was just coming off a 1,000-point high school basketball career and state bottle player of the year and lots of state track records too. And so I arrived on campus thinking I was gonna play a lot of basketball, which I didn't, but that's cool. And I was pretty proud of my physical abilities. I mean, I was young, and I think I was just a duck in a really, really small pond though when I look back. And we did this dorm exercise here at NNU led by the dorm RA or whatever, and it was a list of different people that who would you not want to share your hall with. And it might be a person of a different race, a person of a different religion. And I remember those. One of them was a person in a wheelchair. And I was like, oh, I can get along with anyone. I'll just have to pick one. And so I picked a person in a wheelchair that I would not want to share my hall with a person in a wheelchair. And my reason was, well, then I would feel bad about using a bigger stall in the bathroom. So it was really shallow, and but like it stuck with me too. And then with playing basketball, we had to come up with a thought of the day if it was our turn, and when we're going to start at the beginning and warm up and stretching. And there were some practices that you just knew were going to be miserable, depending on how the game last night went. And so I would just keep coming back to my thought of the day was, at least I'm out here, at least I'm not in a wheelchair. And to me still, that is such a horrible view. I think it was real to me at that point that I felt like I had so much wrapped up in my identity as a player. And now to see what people live with and the things that they overcome and the challenges and the compassion that they have towards others. So I think fast forward a few years and I saw pain, I saw disability in my mom as she relapsed into cancer, and my idea of success definitely changed. I stopped playing basketball, and then I got to go to UCSD and for medical school, and was exposed to a specialty where kind of combined coaching, which I love to do, the athletics, but meeting kids and walking them through that and meeting families, and what a ministry. I felt like I called my dad, they made a specialty just for me. Like, this is it, this is what I want to do with my life. And so I was lucky enough to train at Mayo Clinic, which is a really special place. There's if you don't know much about it, there's a PBS documentary, Ken Burns, about it. So I'm also in a documentary. Really close.
Ken Burns is amazing.
Yeah, no, I think I'm not getting one part. But so the part that I was at, though, at Mayo is there's these huge doors that are always open. And the idea is that the heart of Mayo is always open to the public. And to me, that was such a, this organization that's founded in faith, Mayo Clinic, and I was there when those doors closed because one of the nuns had passed away. And so those doors, it only happens on rare occasions, September 11th, and getting to be there, and it's in the movie, or in the documentary. But I love that I got to train at some place that really just emphasizes that we are here for patients, we are open, this is what we give our lives for. And I think there's such a power in that, and at Mayo, it was always that the needs of the patient come first. And anyone could say that, and it would just pause a conversation. So whether it was a business decision or you're talking about patients, should the patient go home? And then your service, they have my service, well, I don't want them. And someone could say, well, what's the best interest? What are the needs of the patient? And that could freeze everything. Everyone would step back, center, and move on. And I talk about it a little bit, but I love NNU's here for good. What are we here for? I think it's just such a centering idea. Step back. What is NNU here for? What am I here for? So I've had that. I love that phrase. Coming from an institution where we just helped, like there was that phrase that could just change everything. I think that it's such a neat time in NNU's history that that's what we're choosing. That we're here for good. I think that was all I was going to say. Other than I'm proud to be part of NNU. I'm glad to talk to you guys.
Before we get down, does anybody have any questions? We have a couple minutes.
I told my dad he couldn't ask any questions.
One comment as you leave, Aaron. Her mom, Marilee Shively, I don't know if you know her, but my kids know her very well. They both were introduced to Bible study and learning how to be, I think it was a prayer warrior. I think that's the little group that they were called. My son is a sophomore here at college, and he was introduced to Bible study through her mom. Okay. Dennis. Come on up, Dennis. Mr. Construction. Share, Dennis, and if there's any questions, please ask away.
I'm not quite as intimidated. There's not really quite as many people here as there were this morning. I knew Marilee, and when I was on the alumni board, we had kind of a club. We both had the last same name, Straight. So she spelled her name different as a unmarried woman. She was a good friend. I went to Pasadena College my first year, my freshman year. Pasadena College is now Port Loma. The reason I went there is because my friend, the pastor's son, went there, so that's how I got there. But I quickly realized that California was not a place for me. And the second year I went to school, I came here. And I was very thankful. It's much different. It's just a nicer feel to the school, to me. I graduated here in 1969 with biology. After graduation, I got my 52 Chevy pickup, and I drove to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I started a graduate fisheries research assistantship. And I was there for 3 weeks, and I got a communication from my Anchorage draft board saying, "You're about to be drafted. You need to come home. If you don't, you have a choice. You can wait for us to draft you, and there's a possibility you might go in the Marine Corps. Or you can come home now and we'll put you in the Army." I said, "I'm coming." So I came home, got drafted August the 4th, 1969. During basic training, I had a real aggressive drill sergeant, and he strongly encouraged us to buy a savings bond. And I said, well, how much can you buy? And he said, $100 is the top one. I said, I'll buy a $100 savings bond. And I didn't know that it was going to happen every month. I had a $125 paycheck. But the Army was providing me a bed and meals, and I really didn't need the money. So I was trained as a medic. And I worked for 3 months in an Army hospital at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and then I was assigned to Germany. I spent a year in Germany in the Army. When I got to Germany, my commanding officer found out that I could type, so he made me the company clerk. It was a little ambulance company. We had about 15 ambulances. We were assigned to go to different places in Germany. But I stayed home and did the office, which was really nice duty. While there, I met some teachers that were in the Army, and they said, Dennis, teachers are great jobs. So I kind of felt like God was leading me to education. So near the end of my 2-year military commitment in Germany, thanks to my $100 every month being taken out of my paycheck, I ended up to buy a 1971 brand new VW Super Mule, which I did. And I came right out of the showroom there in Germany, and my mom came over to tour Europe because she wanted to have a little tour of Europe and had a car. And she brought over 2 of her friends. One of them was Ariel, who I had met there in Anchorage. I knew her, but I didn't really, there was no clicking going on at the time. Mom started out in the passenger seat at the beginning of her 3-week tour of Europe, and by the end of 2-3 weeks, Ariel was in the passenger seat. I cross-gassed out the Army July 29, 1971, and I spent another year at NSC, and I got my elementary education degree. While I was doing that, I student taught in Ontario, and it just so happens that Justin Steetzig's father was one of my supervising teachers. Kind of cool. Ariel and I were married August 4th, 1972 in Denver. The morning of our wedding, I went to the mailbox and took out a teaching contract from the Anchorage School District. So I was very thankful I had a teaching contract that could support my wife. We drove up to Anchorage after house sitting and teaching for 3 years. We saved as much as we could, and we started building a house on some raw land on the Anchorage hillside. There were no utilities to the house, no water, no natural gas, no sewer, no electricity, no telephone. Since I never built a house before, and there was no power to the lot, it went kind of slow. We had to hand saw all our lumber. I bought a house building book, which you saw in the movie, and I asked a lot of questions at the lumberyard, which was very helpful. We started the house in June of '75. We moved into the house in September of '75, and then the next week went back to teaching school. At that point, we had windows, doors, and insulation, and a fireplace for heat. So we used propane lights, and a propane range, and a propane refrigerator. And we had a nice outhouse. We took showers when we were invited over to our friends' houses for dinner. And we cut a lot of firewood each summer to keep the house warm. Our neighbor, who also didn't have a telephone, he worked for the telephone utility. He had installed a telephone jack on a pole about a quarter of a mile down the road. And he said, Dennis, here's a phone. You can use it. Just take it down there and plug it in. That's where we used our telephone for a while. It was really interesting. When I got sick, I had to go down there and call in sick. I remember standing there in some pretty strong blizzards trying to tell them that I was sick. In about 1987, over the years we saved money during the winters and we continued to work on the house in the summers. And at this point, the house is pretty much done. So, in 1987, I started assisting with the annual 40-mile Anchorage, or Alaska District Himalaya hike. This hike is a resurrection trail hike. It was started in the 70s by Dr. Heidi Curtis's grandfather, Dean Halligan. It's a week-long backpacking trip through the mountains, open to any Alaska NYI student. For the last 32 years, I've either assisted or directed this activity. It's a fun time for students to disconnect from electronics, sitting on the campfire, listen to guitars, and have good fellowship, and look at a lot of God's magnificent handiwork. Followed by a barbecue and soda at the end of the hike. I retired from the Anchorage School District in spring of 2002 after teaching for 30 years. I taught every elementary grade but kindergarten. The best part of my day was after lunch, I would read a chapter book, play the ukulele, and sing crazy kid songs with my students. It was a wonderful career. We spent our time watching our 5 grandkids, up and down with Wednesday night teen group at church, and working at New Hope on Tuesdays in Anchorage. New Hope is a weekly Nazarene Compassionate Ministry Center where we feed the homeless. This ministry feeds about 150 to 200 food-challenged families each week. It's kind of like a grocery store. There's carts, and the volunteers like Errol and I take a client, we work around the grocery store, and we say, okay, you can take 2 things from that shelf, 4 things from that shelf, and something out of the cooler. By the time they get done, they have about $75 worth of groceries every week. The food is either donated from various sources or purchased from the Food Bank of Alaska. This has been a great honor. Thank you very much for honoring me with a distinguished service award.
Construction questions for Dennis?
Not a construction question. I think you should share, Dennis, your most exciting walk to school. I think these people would enjoy that.
Oh, well, I taught at one school for about 14 years, and all of a sudden the student population started to go down, so they had to lose a teacher. I was the low man on the totem pole after 14 years. So I was asked to leave, and I went to another school, which was about a 1.5 mile walk from my house. So it involves a road and then a trail through the woods, and then over a fence to the school. It took me about half an hour. I walked that every day in the morning, in the dark. Generally around 6 o'clock in the morning. One morning I run into moose all the time, and I carried a playground whistle, and generally I could make the moose leave the trail. It's a very narrow trail, they had alders on each side. I could make the moose leave the trail by blowing the whistle. But one morning I ran into this bull moose. It was in the fall, and he had this huge rack. It went from one side of the alders to the other side of the alders, and he just stood there and looked at me with my whistle. I had a little radio, a little transistor radio. I tried to use it for making noise. Holding my hand, I turned it right up. I yelled at him. I hollered at him. Pretty soon he kind of tried to get off the trail with his horns. He couldn't get through the brush this way. Tried to get this way, couldn't get through the brush. He looked at me, and he started running right at me. And he was about near to the end of the chairs when he started. And I'm in the middle of nowhere. I gotta get out of his way. I can't go this way because he's gonna run over me. So I just tore through the brush toward the school, just ripped up my clothes, just messed them up really bad. Ran through a creek, there was some snow, I got all messy. I got about 100 yards to turn around and look, and he wasn't following me because he couldn't get through the brush. So I made it to the school. I called Errol and said, "Errol, bring some new clothes." She drove the car. There was a road that was long that went on. Moose was. I went back and got my transistor right there and dropped it that night. No moose.
So you can say that you went to school uphill both ways in the blinding snow, and it's a true story. Well, thank you, Dennis. Debbie, welcome.
Well, I have this all thought out, and I'm going to leave all my notes over here, so we're going to see where I go in my random manner, and anywhere is kind of the way I taught all these years. You know, the kids would say something, and, oh yeah, that reminds me, and then you're off and read it someplace totally different. So that's kind of a fun thing. Legacy talks. Legacy, the legacy of here starts right with this guy right here, my dad. 1945 is when they came to, he met my mother here in 1945. She'd already been here at school, and he came, and he said he pursued her until she caught him. And they were married for 65 years, 68 years, 68 years. And my dad is now here, living in Napa with us, and so we're really, really pleased about that. But we grew up, my brother Tom and Lee over here, and my other brother Dwayne, that we grew up hearing stories about NNC. Dad traveled in a college quartet, the King's Heralds, and they got to travel all over the Northwest, and the crazy, crazy stories of dorm life, the things that they would tell us. I don't know if it was actually anything quite to top what you gave. Those of you who were privileged to hear the urine story last night, that was really cool. But that was quite a trick. You know, I was thinking about the things that I did when I went to college, and the hysterically laughing times in the dorms. You know, when you have a term paper due and you've hardly started it, and it's getting to be midnight, you know those things? And I would have shared one of those stories of mine, and I thought it was really funny, where we got this idea of taking an envelope and filling it with shaving cream, and then you put that under somebody's door. You snip off the end of it, and then you go whack like that, and it's supposed to go, you know, underneath the door, and they see this coming all around over there. And so my roommate and I, Linda, decided to do that with the person across the hall. And so, but we waited too long. We cut off the end of it, and then we waited, you know, long enough to do it. You know, it's just so funny. Everything's so funny at midnight, you know. And with the term paper, looming. And so we did that, put it under there, and went whack, and it went all over us. And the person inside the room came out, like, what? You know, she thought it was, she didn't understand. But that's why we were doing it to her, because she didn't understand. But we heard stories, and, you know, I don't know about my brothers, but I never had any thoughts of going anywhere else because of what our parents said. And the spiritual emphasis that they've received here, and the growth that happened to them. The teachers, the long-term teachers, that's what the legacy is to me. And then I was privileged to meet my future husband right here in this student union building. And I remember specifically the first time I saw him, he was going with another girl at the time. But I remember thinking, I like those eyes. And so for 44 years, he's been my best friend and mentor here. And now our daughter married her husband she met here, and the legacy goes on from there. When I was a kid, we were in church all the time. Okay? So we were in church twice on Sunday, always, and every Wednesday night. My dad was the choir director of all the churches where we were, so that's where I got a lot of my music. And then every revival service, okay? Every side. So I had a pretty good understanding of who the Lord was, you know, and I heard all these missionaries coming in and talking about being called to serve in a foreign field. And when I was really little, I had no idea what a foreign field was. I had this idea maybe it was like a vacant lot in Africa somewhere, but I didn't know how you served in a foreign field. And when I got to college, I got a little bit older, and one of my one of my husband's brother's wife, who was my mother-in-law, she and her husband then did serve in foreign fields, and they were in a faraway land. Sister-in-law, what did I say?
Mother-in-law.
My mother-in-law, no, that's the wrong one. My sister-in-law. So foreign field, what is a foreign field, and where do you serve? And as I have served in a lot of different areas over the years, I like to think of field being spelled a little bit differently. P-H-E-E-E-L-D, field. And this is what I have come to believe. P is for your passion. What is your passion? What are you excited about? Do you know when you come to NNC what your passion is? I had a good idea. I knew that I loved kids. I knew that I loved music. Oh, because when NNC came, quartets came to our church, oh, that was the best of the best, wasn't it? It was all, and I would sit there with this big grin on my face. And I don't know if some of those early quartets that this little girl stayed with, if they thought maybe I was, a little bit challenged or something. But I just loved it. I loved it. And then hearing the stories from my dad that he got to go with the NNC quartets. Passion, I know. Kids, I loved kids. I knew that kind of stuff, but I didn't know what the Lord was going to do with it. So here was a process of discovering what my passion was and what I could do with it. H. I love to laugh. And usually within a few minutes of me being in a room, my students or people will say, "Oh, Betty's here," because my laugh is, I don't know if it's obnoxious, but it's really distinct. And so, Melissa, is it obnoxious? I love to laugh. Things that make me laugh. Find the things that make you laugh, because if you're so serious you can't enjoy life, that's a huge waste. E. One of the E's I like is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm. I've never been cool. I tried to for a few years, maybe in my teens, because the cool thing of acting like you're not really excited about anything. Okay. It just didn't work for me. And when I came here, it was like I was able to actually be me, and I could be wild and crazy and really stupid sometimes, and it was okay. Love that part, being enthusiastic about things. Enthusiasm. What's another E? There's another E. See, I forgot what they were. Energy. Yeah, I got some energy. I use that. Can't sit still very long. If you use your energy, it multiplies. If you don't use it, it goes away. That's my philosophy. Gotta use it or lose it. Excellence. I mentioned Dr. Hill today having a huge impact on me. Excellence. Dr. Hill, wow, he wrote the book on that as far as I'm concerned. All the productions we did. Got to be in Your Good Man, Charlie Brown, with my future sister-in-law, Becky. And she was Patty, Peppermint Patty, and I was Lucy. Excellence. He brought us up to a certain level. I am now privileged, for the last 18 years, I have directed an adult a cappella caroling group. We wear costumes from Victorian era, and we do about 30 costumes, So we do about 30 performances between Thanksgiving and the week before Christmas. And everything I do with them is centered around what Dr. Hill taught me. Making the music bounce, making it alive, making it fun, and the relationships with those people. And it's not a Nazarene group. A lot of Nazarenes in it, but it's a community group of Mormons. We even have a Jew that sings with us Christmas carols. I love it, absolutely love it. And field, P-H-E-E-E. L is for love. Reuben Welch came to this school, I think, when we were sophomores, and had a revival that he had with us. And one of the things he talked about was having a up-to-date, on-fire love relationship with the Lord. And that's what I got from this school. That's what has grown over the years, to have that relationship. It flows out of you into the field in which you are planted. Last letter is D, discipline. Because sometimes you don't feel like you want to do what you think you're supposed to be doing. So what is discipline? Having enough strength and courage to do what you know you should do, even though sometimes you don't feel like it. And that's what I've taught to my kids, that's what I've taught to my students, that's what I try. And teach myself, sometimes we do get tired, don't we, Aaron? But yeah, you still do. Sometimes you keep pushing, Patrick. Sometimes, yeah. So feel passion, humor, enthusiasm, energy, excellence, love, and discipline. And I think that's kind of what I got here. You know, I didn't get to go to a foreign field except for when I go to foreign fields and get to sing or do drama or do something like that. But this is my field. The field is where God plants you and where you're going to grow. And that's my challenge to myself, to keep on growing and to use what I have been given. How am I doing on time?
Great.
Okay, great. Any questions?
Well, thank you. I wonder how many of your young students will find themselves in a foreign field influenced by you.
I don't know. Probably a few. Thank you.
Okay. Now, last but not least, Patrick, come on right up.
Hello. So I want to expand just a little bit on the video that was put together. So I think a few people have questions about how I actually wound up here, because I had no intention of going into you, like zero. So I don't know if my parents remember this or not, but I applied to 2 schools, 2, USC and University of Michigan. I got into both. USC is a private school, and I had some scholarships, not near enough to pay for that school. University of Michigan had out-of-state tuition, also quite expensive. So here it is, the end of July. Who's going to take me? NNU. Well, NNC at the time. That was it. Like, there was like, crap. I couldn't figure out where I'm going to go. And Justin and I planned on going to Point Loma. It was closed. They were not taking any applications. And so NNC took me. And I will say what's crazy is that the very first day I showed up here, I actually met my wife. I moved in, and then there was this gal we started dating 2 days later. Well, I'm poor, so I mean, that was a date. So that's how I wound up here. I grew up in Ontario, and that's my journey to get to NNU. And I think it turned to NNU the year after we graduated. And so we got married. We moved to Seattle, where she's from, and lived there for all of 3 months because I couldn't stand it, and it's just too busy. I mean, you grew up in Ontario, Oregon, where there's not a lot to do, but yet there's a lot to do because, I mean, you figure out stuff to do, you're all sitting around all these people, all this traffic, and rain. So we flipped a coin, landed on Portland, Oregon, moved down there, lived there for about a year, not quite. And I'm kind of my wife would say I was an eternal student at the time. Didn't know what I wanted to do, graduated with a biology degree. Originally I was going to do pre-med. And then I realized that I'm not as disciplined as you are. Nope. There was no way in all the world that I was going to graduate from medical school because I just like to mess around too much. So I went back to school, got an exchange degree, taught high school for 2 years, biology and ecology over in Meridian. And then went back to school and got a nursing degree, and that's how I met Ed, who kind of put everything together. What I mentioned earlier in chapel, this is kind of, I think all of this can point back to individuals who have played a major role in you winding up where you are, you know. And Ed's one of many, many stories. And so that's really all I got. Just want to kind of fill in the gaps of how I wound up here. And I speak. That's what I do for a living. I travel around and keynote conferences with Justin, and I get to tell stories. And it's an amazing blessing to be able to do that, but the stories aren't the cool part. It's the conversations I get to have afterwards. You know, you go into name a location, and you talk for an hour about any given topic, but then afterwards just look at someone in the eyes and have conversations about what has stirred in their heart and their mind from what you've shared, and then you really get to connect. And it's amazing how, I mean, if any of you knew me as a kid, you're like, this guy's gonna have a microphone and a captive audience. This is a terrible idea. Because I wasn't that guy. But now that I get to do what I get to do, and I get to share stories about faith, love, and hope in places that you wouldn't normally think that you get to go there. Sometimes in churches and schools, that kind of thing, and sometimes it's in corporate offices, where they bring you in to talk about something entirely different. Yet the conversations afterwards always point back to, okay, so how'd you really get here? And it's just been a gift to be on that journey. So that's all I got. I would love to answer any questions you might have, and if you don't, then we can get out here early. So any questions at all? I am an open book, so anything starting, yes sir.
So we were watching the movie last night and talking to people were asking questions. I didn't ask the question then, but at what point in the process of from in the time where he's like asking you, hey, we should do this, and you're like, sure, I'll push you, to where the realization, I'm assuming at some point happened in your head, oh crap, what did I get myself into?
Yeah, the oh crap factor is very accurate. Yeah, yeah.
Where was that transition?
I like how you ended that, because I feel like that, that's I mean, I'm not going to say it, but crap isn't quite strong enough what I was feeling. I was terrified. So, I mean, you make a decision. Yeah, it's one of those moments where you realize just how utterly naive you are, right? And I think we all have those moments at various points in our lives. But when I started to look at video footage of the trail, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, this is crazy. And I started pulling out topographical maps and seeing the elevation gain for any given day, and I'm just like, what was I thinking? I didn't know this is possible. So, but it's the kind of thing where Justin and I both kind of have this mentality of if you believe in something strong enough, you'll figure out how to do it. Like, what's your why behind anything you do, whether it's an adventure or it's a career. If your passion is in it, it may not be a straight line that gets you from point A to point B, but you'll come hell or high water, you'll figure out how to do it. And so for me, it was, I gotta train. I have to be in the best shape I have ever been in my entire life. And so while Justin was figuring out logistics for his wheelchair and what equipment we needed and trying to raise money for certain things, I started training a year before we left. I trained for 12 months. And for 9 of those 12 months, I was in the gym or on my bike at home 6 days a week, twice a day. And I don't know that I missed a day over those first 9 months. I mean, I was obsessed with, I gotta get the job done. And then when his chair showed up about 3 months out from us leaving, I abandoned all efforts in the gym, and we just started getting miles underneath my feet and his wheels. We start off with 8 miles, and pretty soon we're doing 15 miles 3 or 4 times a week. And in spite of all that preparation, I wasn't even close to ready. And so I just say all that to say that the oh crap factor kicked in quite early. But fortunately, while Justin and I both felt that at different points in time, we were a couple of hamsters on a wheel, on separate wheels, and every once in a while I get my leg caught in the hamster wheel and we kind of skip it along because I'd be so stressed out about what's going on. But Justin, his hamster wheel would be intact. He'd be running along just fine, like, we're good. And he would freak out. We're good, man. And so we never fell into that cycle of fear and being overwhelmed at the same time. And fortunately, I got to give credit to Donna and Kirsten and our wives. They were, yeah, let's do this. We're all in, figure it out. So to have that support, and I remember telling my parents about it, and I also remember my sister Jennifer here and her husband Dean, who's not with us today, he had to leave, but we were at Fancy Freaks in Boise, and it was crazy. Oh my goodness. Those people who know me know I'm a bit of an emotional person at times, so I apologize. Pull it together here. I just remember sitting across from the red tables, and our kids were playing, and telling Jennifer and Dean about it. They're like, "It's awesome," and like never a moment of doubt. There were other people that I know that doubted us and that kind of breathed words of negativity, like, "You can't do this. You're stupid. This is crazy. Why would you do this? You're putting yourself at risk. It's impossible." You name it. But right out of the gates, these guys were like, "You got it. We believe in you." And to have that kind of support made those moments pretty easy to handle. So that was a very long answer to a very short question. Sorry.
No.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
My wife and I just came this morning, so we didn't hear it last night, but we heard enough to realize that this was a major event in your life. You helped your friend go across. Fast forward to today, how you live your life today, where you live and what you do. How has this event transformed your life, if it has, the way you operate today?
That's a lot to unpack, my friend. I will try and be succinct. So, just to give you a snapshot, before all this took place with, and are you aware of the journey at all? Okay, so before this whole 500-mile trek through Spain took place, I was working at St. Luke's, and I was in an administrative role. And I gotta be clear what I say here. The struggles I faced weren't because of the job I was in. I was my own worst enemy. I'm a very type A, get stuff done kind of person. And I'm also very obsessed with control at times, especially in my job at the time. I mean, if I couldn't wrap my arms around it, I didn't feel safe. I needed to control everything. And so as this role I had grew, I took everything on that I could, even though there's people around me that were better at some of the tasks that needed to be done than I was. If I couldn't control it, I didn't feel safe. And there's a whole story behind it. But what this journey taught me is that that's not safety. It's a very perverted sense of safety. Control isn't safe. Control at the end of the day is manipulation. It just is. And through all that, my role as a husband and as a father was very compromised. I just made a lot of decisions where I think I was putting my family first, but I wasn't. I was putting dollar signs first. So that's what I was doing. Providing financially, but not providing what was actually needed. And so, I tell you all that to say that now, looking back, it's like I just have a very different perspective on relationship and what is truly valuable in life. And I don't always do this well, but I try to let the relationships I have or I could have drive my decisions, especially with my wife and kids, because I missed out on a lot for 4 years that was completely unnecessary. And so now, where I am today, relationships are one of the most valuable things that we have in our lives, and we don't treat it as such far too often. So, thank you.
Just maybe you can comment on this, but it's an observation. You and Justin, to me, last night watching the whole movie and your comments afterwards, kind of the same in that it looked like you guys both evolved to allow others the opportunity or the pleasure of supporting or helping you, or others for that matter. It just appeared that you both struggled and you're kind of learning to get past the struggle of allowing others to serve.
No, I think that's very accurate. And I would say that, kind of piggyback on what you just asked before, the question before, on kind of the before and after the journey. Letting people help you is hard, because it means you don't have to figure it out. But the reality is none of us actually do. We tell ourselves that lie, that we gotta figure it out. And what I've found, and especially the people that I'm face to face with every day, like my wife and kids, or Justin, or some of the friends that we do work with, is that vulnerability component that once you embrace that, you let people in to help you augment you where you're weak. What really is at play there is, I think, what the recipe for love that God designed. And it's that when we let people into our story and our journey and share the good and the bad, even the dark stuff, we're giving them an incredible gift because we're giving them the opportunity to love all of who we are as opposed to just bits and pieces. And that's the kind of love God has for us. And that means that we're going to have to say yes to help. That means we have to invite people into those moments of brokenness. And that's where God's love can shine. If we only let them into the areas where we haven't figured out, God's love can't be known. It can't. Because we're doing it on our own. Thank you. Anybody else?
All right. Well, we're ahead by about 5 minutes. Good job, Darryl. Good timing on that. Thanks,
Thanks,
Patrick. Well, and thanks for everybody. Thanks to all of you.